Welcome to Money Convos, where we discuss personal finance and investment tips. We're committed to helping people create wealth and achieve financial freedom. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Alright then, let's head into today's conversation.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's conversation. I'll just bring up our guest speakers today. Adam, please, I know we are bringing Eddie B up here. Please let me know who else I need to bring up. Edwin, I've sent you a request to come up, but you can just request the mic if you don't see that.
Welcome.
Hi Edwin, how you doing?
Oh yeah, hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great, bro. I'm great, Charlie. We'll start in a quick sec. I just want to check something with Adam. I know one more person is joining us before we get started.
Okay, yeah, sure. No problem.
Hello, Elikem.
Hello, Adam.
I just invited Millionaire upstate to this week. OMD this week.
Charlie, not be small talk they can't talk today. If millionaires they join here, Charlie. It's a serious decision. Mimi, please come up here because I know that you'll be bringing in. Okay, great. All right, let's get this started. So thank you everyone for joining. Millionaire, if you don't see the notification, please feel free to request the mic to join us up here. All right, so today we are having a conversation about something that is on a lot of people's minds. I think the Nigerians call it Japa, or is it Japa? Maybe I'm not saying it right. But basically, a lot of people are thinking about leaving Ghana because the economic situation in Ghana is really hard. I must disclose fully, I have already left. I left last year. And we have Edwin here. He left a couple of years ago. And we also have Millionaire who will be joining us to also share his perspective. And then we also want to hear from Ghanaians who are still in Ghana, who want to share their reasons why they are thinking about leaving. And I know Danielle is in the audience. He didn't prep Danielle for this, but hey, Danielle, if you got a moment, you left and you came back and you've been here for 2-3 years. So it will be good to hear your perspective on this topic. So feel free to request the mic when you can. But yeah, basically today we want to have a discussion about why people are thinking about migrating out of Ghana for work and for life, and also look at the pros and cons of this decision. What are the risks involved? Basically, is it worth it? And then a part which is for me, it's a bit like a social awakening to not just the leaders of our country, but to everybody, is as people are leaving, as our talented, our bright and best people are leaving, it reduces the potential of the whole society to do better, right? So is there something that we can do to fix whatever problems we have so that we can all say that, you know what, Ghana is good enough. We want to stay back here and put in the efforts to make our country better. So towards the end of the conversation, we'll get to that aspect. But yeah, I welcome Edwin and everyone to this discussion. Edwin, how are you doing? And if you could just give us a brief introduction, tell us a bit about yourself, where you school, where you've been, and where you currently are.
Yeah, sure. So my full name is Edwin Bugri. I'm currently based in West Palm Beach, Florida. I came to the US in 2018 through school. I went to Texas Tech University for a dual master's program in engineering, petroleum engineering, and then also in data science. And now I work with a renewable energy company called Nextera Energy in Florida. And I moved to Florida after I graduated from school in 2021, which is why I came to Florida, because the job was in Florida. Yeah. And nice to talk to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And it's interesting hearing where you've been and what you do. I'm sure some people in the audience may relate, especially people who are thinking about tech jobs, people who are thinking about engineering jobs, people who are just thinking about going abroad for school, and some people will relate. And Edwin is a friend of both me and Adam, but we all discovered Edwin from different places. A conversation I've been having with Edwin this week is, Edwin wants to help people who want to go abroad. So we will later in the conversation get into how, if people want more information about how to do it, we'll show you how to reach out to Edwin for more information. So that will be coming up soon. So stay tuned, listen to this conversation, follow the speakers, and we would get the necessary information you need. Mimi, are you there? I know that Sunday nights are not always the best timing for you, but are you there to join us in discussion?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi everyone. Pardon the technical disruption. The space crashed. these days. These days under new management, this thing is not so reliable. Last week we had a lot of technical challenges. But anyway, we'll pick it up. We'll just continue and stitch it together for our recording for the podcast. So no problem. Just waiting for Mimi to reconnect. Yeah, I appreciate everyone for rejoining so swiftly. We are going to be looking at two angles to the conversation. People who've left and people who want to leave. But most of the lessons will be coming from the people who've left already. Let me just confirm. Edwin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. I think Mimi hasn't reconnected, so let's just continue. And when Mimi comes back, I'll ask her question. So, Edwin, why did you leave? Oh, actually, wait. Before we get to Edwin, let me also give my bio before since I'm even though I'm hosting it, I'm also one of the people in this soup. So for me, I left Ghana last year. July last year, I came to do my MBA at Cornell University, and I do intend to stay here for a while to, further my professional growth and development, and hopefully make enough money to be able to send back home to help develop Ghana from a distance. So yes, that's my plan here. Yeah, so that's a bit about me. Let's get into the questions. Edwin, why did you leave Ghana? Because I'm sure you could have done your master's in KNUST or some good university in Ghana.
Yeah, thanks. So for me, I think I decided to leave when I was doing my national service. I was doing my national service at JNPC at the time. I think it was should be 2017, 2018, yeah. And then I just looked at the situation, just how I was able to get my service in GNPC, and also the fact that it would have been quite tough to be retained in the place to get a full-time employment. And then secondly, because I was in the oil and gas space at the time, or sort of I still am, but then at the time there weren't really a lot of companies in Ghana that were actually actively exploring oil and gas in Ghana. There were very few, maybe 5 at best. And even those weren't really hiring at a very high rate. So that's when I decided I wanted to explore other options, particularly in the US, because there were a lot of them that a lot of oil companies were in the US who also had interest in exploring oil in Ghana at the time. So I was thinking if I could get the chance to work in those companies outside, when if I should go to the US, I could in a way come back to Ghana, but then be working for that same company in a way in Ghana. Sort of, that was my thought process at the time. Example, ExxonMobil at the time, I think 2 years ago, was doing exploration in Ghana, but I think they called off that effort. Then there was another company called Anadarko, but that has been bought by another oil and gas company. I forgot the name. And then the others were in, I think, UK and Italy. So that's the reason why I decided to leave. And also, it was just from advice from my dad also at the time. He told me sort of the same thing. He's been he was working at SNET. He's retired now. But he told me it's going to be really tough getting into those kind of places at this current time in the situation that I was in Ghana. So it would be best if I was interested in exploring other options. But I had already started doing that by myself anyway. So he adding that just gave me more encouragement to do that. So that's why I left.
That's interesting. Looking at the kind of opportunities you wanted or the kind of career you wanted, there wasn't enough space in Ghana to accommodate you. And if that would happen, it would require a lot of connections and a lot of difficulty, a lot of waiting. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. I know some months ago, a Nigerian blogger got into trouble for going on BBC to say that Nigerians are not necessarily going abroad for their education, but because of their job, or they're just seeking citizenship elsewhere. I know it was a very complicated, a very interesting thing that came up. But the goal of this discussion is not to encourage anyone to just leave the country. The goal really is for people to be armed with sufficient information, because I think whether or not we have this discussion, this is a topic that people are thinking about, but we want to walk through the thought processes, things people should consider. So just putting a disclaimer out there, I'm not in any way encouraging anyone. But as you heard what Edwin's motivation was, if you can relate, well, then seek the tools that you need to make the right decision. For me, I had been working in investment banking at the time when I made the decision. Well, it's always been my goal to rub shoulders with the best of the best. I always knew that I am amazing, and I'm not seeing. I'm just trying to be a bit open up and see really the motivations. It wasn't for me. It wasn't really from a point of Ghana had. It's because personally, I believe that I could rub shoulders with the best of the best. When I was leaving college, I had opportunities to go work in Bank of America, Goldman. I didn't get getting through my first time of applying to these jobs. Other classmates did, or other classmates also waited a year during our national service. We applied, right? So I, due to some family reasons, I couldn't follow that path, but I had to go a longer route. Some of my mates, they went right after national service and they've been in the UK. I think some even have permanent residence by now, they bought houses and all that. So for me, I'm like, if I really believe personally in myself, that I am very intelligent, very hardworking. I believe I'm going to be very successful. I need to be able to rub shoulders with the best of the best rather than be a big fish in a small pond. And let's be real, the Ghanaian market is a very small pond. Then I should go out there and rub shoulders with the best of the best. So it had been on my mind for many years to go and play in these bigger fields. I chose the MBA because I want to get into management and be. I have a wild dream of wanting to be a Fortune 500 CEO sometime. Maybe that plan will change. Maybe that plan won't change, but I'm going to be shooting for it to try to get into it. So I know very well that an MBA from University of Ghana, Legon won't get me there. One of the ways I knew is when I saw people who did an MBA in University of Ghana and they are writing thesis papers. I'm like, yeah, they don't understand what an MBA is. An MBA is about practical work. So I come here in my MBA here at Cornell. We are doing a whole lot of practical work. Rarely ever have to write papers. It's about, can you do the work or not? It's not about how intelligent you are. That was the minimum that was required to get in here. But now, can you do the work? Can you make management presentations? Can you structure transactions? So I knew that in terms of the kind of education that'll get me to the goals that I want, I'm not going to find some in Ghana. So I know I need to go abroad. Also, the markets in Ghana are small. Like I had no doubt in my mind that, I was back in college, I was as smart as my friends who went to London and Wall Street to go and work there. But I'm like, do I have the experience and expertise to actually rub shoulders with these people? No. Until I get there and I'm working at that high level of intensity, then I can prove to myself that, I'm doing it. And so, for me, by the time I was leaving Ghana, I was okay. I was comfortable. But then again, Mandem has plans of buying a Rolls Royce one day. I didn't see the career path of where I would in Ghana. I didn't see that kind of Rolls Royce money in a career path in Ghana. So that's where maybe the economic situation would come up for me. But it's for me it was really about the kind of things I want to achieve, the kind of things I believe I could achieve, and I needed to prove to myself. So I had to leave Ghana to prove these things to myself and get them done. Yeah. So that was my motivation. Okay. So Mimi, are you with us now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm here.
Great. So Mimi, I know it comes up every now and then and you joke about it. I don't know how serious you take this, but we want someone to represent people who are currently in Ghana and want to leave. So we are appointing you as the representative of Ghanaians currently in Ghana who are considering leaving. So you can combine your personal thoughts and other people, in discussions that you've got from people. So why would people be thinking about leaving Ghana for greener pastures?
I think that generally people don't have any hope in the country. And so as people make the decision to leave for whatever reason, try and find routes to education, work, marriage, whatever reason, those that didn't even plan on going start rethinking it. Like everybody's going, FOMO kind of thing. Do I also go? So something that just started with a few people sparks interest in others because they are also in the economy, suffering the consequences of whatever decisions that have been taken by the leaders and what the external environment also has to offer. So you're beginning to think that, do I just take the risk and move to another country especially where that country seems to have the systems and structures to make life easier in terms of being able to sort out at least the basic things. So I think that's why people are moving. It wasn't as bad. I mean, every now and then you see people move, but now I think it's the situation in the country. People generally don't have hope that will get better anytime soon. And honestly, I've been saying this year, I myself have felt, I have never really felt, maybe I'm exaggerating, but I haven't really felt like tired, like I'm struggling financially like this year. This year hasn't been an easy year. It's like the money comes and you don't even know where it's going. And I think for many people, they are also feeling the heat. I've heard people talk about they don't know how to pay their next rent. People are really worried. And, for some people, leaving the country is a way to solve that problem. So that's why I think people are leaving.
That's interesting. It's the hope, right? It's like people don't see the hope. And it comes to a question that people ask me whenever I interact with people. I'm an international student. Oh, so, will you go back, or why won't you go back? I'm like, Ali, the hope is not so bright back there. So when we say the hope, there's not much hope. Like, what really do we mean? Like, what are we hoping for that is not there? Or we don't think things will change?
I think generally, like, the feeling is that the Ghanaian environment sets you up to fail. You get it? So it's not like, okay, work hard and you are guaranteed that work you'll be rewarded for that work that you are doing. People just want at least a fair system where if I'm working hard, it should reflect in my life. I should see that my basics are provided. I should be comfortable, have a comfortable place to live, have food, like the basics. It's after the basics have been met that you start thinking about all those wild dreams. I think you cross the line. You move from wherever to having those wild dreams, right? But just think about like the Maslow's theory of needs. I think that a lot of us are still stuck at the basic side. So it's about how do we change our location so that at least we can solve some of these problems. And sometimes, Eddie Kim, it's as a result, the hopelessness is also driven by the fact that
this space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Let's say your boss, who is supposed to be the one that you are aspiring to be like, neho trainer. So that also drives some hopelessness. Like, if you see that your boss is hustling and you cry, you are not at his level yet, the future does not look bright. Yes. So that general perception that the Ghanaian terrain is tough and it doesn't reward your labor, I think drives that hopelessness.
That's interesting. And I can relate on this last point of when you look at the people who are in the places that you want to be and you look at their situation, go like, Charlie, scratch your head small. As a friend would ask, will it ever be good? I'll pause the conversation about this hope because I have a controversial point that I think I want to bring it towards the end about hope. And I'll bring it up later. Let's switch back to Edwin. Edwin, so I guess now we've covered the whys, right? Let's talk about the pros and cons. So first, pros. What are the benefits of moving out of Ghana to other countries? Me and you are in the US, but we can think about in the context of generally any other place apart from Ghana. What are the pros?
For pros, I think it just gives you like better exposure to things that you may not necessarily have had access to. So like, for example, the reason why I started doing data science was because I was actually doing petroleum engineering at the time. And then I had like to do some sort of like a research for a presentation, like any topic of your choice for grad school. And I was like looking into things that I I could potentially do a research on for the presentation. And then I didn't want to do like lab work, like going to the lab and doing a lot of experiments. I was looking at something else, like anything else. So that's when I came across like some blogs or papers that someone had written about using like machine learning. At the time, I didn't even know what it was. I just saw it and like it looked interesting. For machine learning for predictive analytics in the oil and gas industry, basically like simply put, trying to be able to predict the presence of oil or gas at a place without necessarily like drilling to find samples. So it just looked interesting. I was like, oh, okay, let me read it, see what it's about. And then I saw like some code that he had put there, and he used that on his own data. And at the time, I also had like access to data that was from the school, but in Texas. So I was like, okay, let me just try this and see. So it was just like a play thing I was doing. And then I just took more interest in it. I did the presentation on it. It got more attention, and I had the chance to like present it in other avenues. So long story short, like it was just one of the things that I had come across or had access to at the time. Now, I don't think I would have had that opportunity if I was still in Ghana, for example, because I would just be pretty much just like focused on getting my work done. But that was like one of the experiences that I had, and through that I went more into it, and I am who I am today. And another thing was just getting the chance to meet like people from other countries, just exposes you more and like just opens up your mind to other like avenues, opportunities. Like I've had friends from China, even Cameroon, Nigeria, like just talking to them just opens up your mind and perspective on other things, like how things are done in their country, like why Chinese people, like there's quite a lot of them also from China and in India, in the US. Just talking to them and having friends with them just gives you like some different perspective as to what goes on in their country and why they also leave their places to school in the US. Because there's actually so many like people from so many different countries. It's incredible. Like I've met people from all over the world. So that's one like thing I really liked also. I think right now these are the only two things I would say. That it's not, maybe meeting people is not necessarily a pro, but it just gives you like that chance to like connect with other people from different parts of the world, and you never know when you may need like some help from someone at some point in time.
Okay, those are some good points. The first one you talked about, like exploring new things, and I can totally relate, or I see it happening a lot in Ghana, because somebody starts with one particular program or of study in school, and it's like you have to dive doing that program. You can't switch to go and try something different. No. Once you started here, you have been boxed in. But here, outside of Ghana, quite often you can change whatever you want to do, and the incremental cost is not so high. You can just switch or do a dual major. You can mix things up. It's interesting. Then, for me, I guess some of the pros that I've seen are one, of course, there's money. Chances are, like, I take somebody doing investment banking in a top firm in Ghana versus somebody doing investment banking in a top firm on Wall Street. It's clearly I feel like there's more reward for similar efforts. Or even if it's not similar efforts, at least while I'm there, I know that I can put in the best effort for that level and get very good reward. If I'm putting in the best effort for the Ghanaian level, I'm still not feeling like the same. I'm getting similar reward, or the best reward possible. Take even nursing. A nurse in Ghana, I think some of the best things that they can look forward to, and I may be wrong, I'm not a nurse, and I don't have a lot of nurse friends, but a few conversations I've had, so please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but there's the job stability. But besides that, they are not getting rich off it in their main work. Granted, they can go and do the locum, try to have other part-time jobs and all of that and make some extra money on the side. But here, with nursing in the US, with your main job, like, you can make a decent living, So I think that there's more opportunities for reward when you do good work here. I think that's one of the things that Mimi mentioned. Another thing is health. I know that maybe the US market, the US may not be the best place to talk about the best health system, but in other countries, they have better health systems. You can get access to doctors. Some places you don't even have to pay. The health insurance works. I think Canada may be a place like that where the health system works well, but anyone who is there can feel free to just DM me to correct me if I'm wrong. But I know that there are way better health systems in other countries than in Ghana, in more developed countries. Other things are like opportunities. Like if you put in some effort that you want to improve yourself, you want to improve your capacity, you want to work very hard, the opportunities are there. You can take it on, and speaking of opportunities, like you take Ghana, somebody who is unemployed, there aren't so many opportunities to get a job. Entry level jobs want you to have 3 years of work experience. Who is going to give you that first job for you to get that experience? That's something that people really struggle when they come up against it. I think the national service scheme, if despite its flaws, is actually one point that actually helps people to get 1 year of work experience. Because in Ghana, we don't have the culture of working early. Like in the US, people in high school, they have some job mowing lawns or working in a grocery shop or at some McDonald's or something. So they learn work ethic. But in Ghana, I think it's something that we should change. We should let younger people start working early on. It will create more opportunities for people to make money and all that. But to put the words in, to put this sense of opportunity in the way someone told me recently. This person is of South Sudanese descent, but moved to the US I think when she was 3 or 5. She visited Nigeria for 6 months when she was 18 years old. No, Nigeria is not Ghana, but I think it's similar. And she realized something. In these countries, when you are broke, you are broke. You're not just broke. In the US, you can be broke. But there are opportunities for you to make money. For example, if you have access to a car, you can go do DoorDash, Uber, or something and just make some money on the side. You can find some side gig. Like talk to people you know abroad, outside of Ghana. A lot of people easily have 2 jobs. How many people have 2 jobs in Ghana? It's rare. So there are no opportunities like that. And that's one of the things that really kills it for people. Like if I'm broke, let me have a place where I can pick up from. Now, there's a certain, in some of these countries too, there's a certain social flaw under which it's really difficult to fall under. For example, there's unemployment benefits. This was a big deal during COVID if you were paying attention to the news. Granted, sometimes you have to be a citizen in these countries to get these benefits, but I guess people move to try to become permanent residents, then citizens. So that's the idea, right? If you lose your job, and it's not like you just resigned, but some hardship caused you to lose your job, you have some fallback plan. If you get sick, you have some recourse that, okay, you can't work for a while, but somebody will be paying you, while you are off. Those disability insurance and those things. Like in Ghana, for you to do the same, that means you are earning your income and you are having to pay private insurance. Okay, there's SNIT. Granted, there's SNIT. But how many people have access to all these opportunities? It's not as prevalent as in these developed markets. And these are some of the opportunities that people want. There's, the quality of life is better to some extent. Of course, there's a whole lot of junk food here. That's fine. But there's a certain sense of quality of life that you can have. You don't have to be rich to be living in certain places. I was saying over the summer when I went to live somewhere, and for the kind of rent I was paying, the community pool was so beautiful, like the ambience there. I'm like, for me to have such a view in Ghana, I would have to be living in Bellagio or something, like some really, really fancy place that's going to cost me an arm and a leg, but normal people can afford these kind of amenities, so that's another thing. A few more benefits. People follow rules in developed countries. People do follow rules. Like when I came to the US, it's the first time I realized that the stop sign is actually an instruction, not a suggestion. In Ghana, I thought stop sign is if no car is coming, you can go. But if a car is coming, this is where you stop. But you get the idea. The rules are there, but we don't know. We don't follow the rules, man. You don't even know what the rules even are. We don't enforce these things. There's no, like, I can count the number of times I've seen police cars. Of course, unless you go to certain places that are highly policed, then you feel safe. Fine. But I've never had to speak to a police officer of 1 year being here. Fine, let me pause here. Edwin, how many times have you ever had to speak to a police officer?
Let me see. I've had an encounter maybe.
Stubbornness.
I don't think it's more than twice.
No more than twice, and you've been here for close to 5 years. See,
Yeah.
Ghana. Oh,
It was twice.
bro, on a 30-minute, just going to work, cry, you may have to talk. In fact, from work to home, cry, you may have to talk to 2 or 3 of them. You know, I get that our situation is different, but it's without a gun to people's head, without feeling like the law, people, you are being watched over. People still follow the rules. Granted, there are social dynamics like this. This conversation is not really about why is our society the way it is? Why is it the way it is? Like, yeah, it would be lovely for us to be able to change our society and all that. But at this current point in our lives, this is where we are at, and these are our options. Which one do we exit? Which one do we take? We can say, okay, I'll wait for Ghana to change while I still suffer, or I move on, you know? So yeah, these are different things that people think about. And finally, I just say system works. Chinny Jonas will say that, or is it somebody else who says it? The system is working 247. Like the system is working. If light goes off, then something serious is wrong. You get me? So it's when the system is working, you don't have to worry about electricity. You can actually get your homework done. You can get your work done. You don't have to worry about, okay, my lights are off. I have to go somewhere else to go and get the work done. Like, I talk to people who are trying to apply to university here and are trying to have coffee chats with them or mock interviews, and somebody's internet is spotty. Somebody's is like, it's so frustrating. They can't even access these opportunities, but here the systems work. And the question is, Charlie, where would you rather be? You know, I know we can all try to fix these things back at home, but yeah, these are some of the pros of living in the developed countries or in other countries outside of third world country. Yeah. So yeah, these are some of the pros. We can just quickly move on to the cons, and then we start looking at the risks. I don't think people really think so much about the risks, but this would be a good place for us to talk about these risks. So Edwin, let's start off again with you. How about the cons? What are some of the disadvantages you've experienced being outside of Ghana?
Oh yeah, disadvantages. So I would say, like, so sometimes I just think about like the kind of work that I've been doing here, or what I've been.
Charlie, Edwin, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you.
Great, Charlie. Thanks for your patience and rejoining. Thank you to all our audience for rejoining this. And the new management here, this thing is really testing us. Because we try to have co-hosts and things so that if anything is going on, but it will always pick up. But Charlie, today the technicalities are technicalizing us. All right. Anyway, I think other people will be joining in a minute, but for our podcast and our YouTube, we'll just stitch everything together. Good. This would be a good point for me to actually just do a reset for us while we wait for other people to join. So today we are this is Money Convos. You know, we have conversations about personal finance without strings attached, and we've been expanding it. Actually, it's always been like that, expanding, not just talking about money, but also about personal development. Because that's how, if you are not personally developed, if you don't have the capacity, how do you make the money for us to talk about investing and securing your future? You get me? So today is one of those conversations about building our capacity. Today we are talking about the brain drain in Ghana. People wanting to leave Ghana for greener pastures. People wanting to go seek better educational experiences, professional experiences, better quality of life. Basically just leaving Ghana for more developed countries that have more opportunities. And our goal with this discussion is to understand why people are doing this, why people are wanting to leave, have examples from people who've left and people who are in Ghana but want to leave. We are talking about the pros and cons, the benefits of making this move. We are also looking at the risks that are involved in this. It's not rosy. It's not on the ground. It doesn't fall from the tree. So we need for people to be well informed. We are not advising people to leave because it's going to cause a lot of harm to Ghana if everybody leaves. It'll be an empty shell, you know. We would love for people to stay and help build our country. But if you are in a situation where you realize now your best alternative, what you can really work with is to exercise the option of exiting, please, you need to be well informed so that you make the right decision and it doesn't go against you in the long run. Because some people have done this and it's not worked out well for them. So yeah, if you haven't followed us yet, follow us here on X or Twitter, which is really giving us a bad day today, and on Instagram and on Facebook. If you want to play back these conversations, get on YouTube, follow at Money, just search for Money Convos on YouTube. Look, wherever you listen to your podcast, search for Money Convos. We upload our recordings. We have our indefatigable chief producer, that's Dennis. He makes sure that we are always there and we are always on time. So yeah, follow us and also share it with other people to follow. And while you are on Instagram, follow at investment_friend. Investment friend. There you see Mimi and Sarah put out a lot of content, interactive content, and they do challenges to try to take the personal finance even more personal. At Money Convos, we have general conversations and we tell you, talk to somebody who knows your situation, your individual situation better. At Investment Friend, it gets closer to you. You have discussions that will suit your individual needs because your situation may be different from your brother or your mother's or your sister's situation. So you want somebody who can guide you to make sure that you are doing things that would suit your unique environment. So yeah, we'll continue with this conversation. And once again, thank you all for your patience this Sunday evening. So Edwin, we were about to talk about the cons, the disadvantages of leaving Ghana to go to Obima, so somebody else's country. What would you like to get us started with?
Yeah. All right. So I think the most obvious one I'll start with is just like losing out on talent from Ghana to other countries. Because like I said, like there's a lot of my mates here or friends here, they're doing really good work in different places. And I was just thinking like if we're doing the same thing back home, I think this will have made the country like much better just by what you're actually doing at work. Because of like, for example, because I work in the energy industry, I've seen like how they do things here. And I've had the chance to work on like a lot of really interesting projects. For example, like gaining energy from like solar panels or wind farms. And it's most of the time, there's like a lot of people from other countries that are actually working on this kind of projects. And so I was just thinking to myself one day, like if this was being done back home, I think it would solve a lot of like our electricity problems, like literally, but then we just don't have the capacity to do it. So that's one of the cons, like on a more global like scale. But then if I'm talking about like cons as to like on a more personal level, I would say that leaving to another country, one of the things that may potentially be a problem, or at least at the beginning, would be the opportunities that sometimes you miss out on because you're not from the place. Like, I mean, like not being a resident of the country. So when I first came, like within the first 2 years, I think I had like a couple of job offers, but then they were resigned because they found out like closer to the paperwork. At the end of the paperwork, they found out like, oh, you're not like a citizen of the US, or you don't have a green card, that kind of thing. So then they kind of resigned the offer back. I've heard the same story too from a lot of friends. I even have a friend who actually even started work. Like he had to move from one state to a whole other state. And then they found out like his paperwork, his citizenship was of Ghanaian descent, not the US. So they just like kicked him out like the same day on the spot. And he had to leave the company. Right. So that's one of the problems too. Like if you're not from the place, you may miss out on like even things like scholarships when you're in school or job offers. That's going to be a headache. I don't know how it is for other countries, but at least in the US, that's how it is. And another thing is, it may not be a problem for everyone, but one thing I'll say is being like homesick. At least in my case, when I came to Texas, I had like within maybe a year, I had 3 different classmates who I was classmates with most of them in school, in either King University or in high school. And then they ended up in the same school that I was in. Well, the thing was they contacted me first, so I kind of knew they were coming. But then if I wasn't like with them in the school, I would have felt very lonely because I didn't really meet a lot of Africans where I was in school. And even the people that I was with were mostly like from different countries. So it was a very different experience that I've had, because that was the first time I was actually a minority in a different place. The food was like very different. Everything is completely different. The weather was different. It was just like a whole different experience. So then at that point, like, I mean, within the first 3 months, you'd be very excited going, hey, I'm going to the US, blah, blah, blah. But then after a while, like, when you start like schooling and life like really gets in the way, you start like missing a whole lot of things. Like on Saturday, if I was back home, I could just wake up, go buy watch on the street, easy. But here I like the city or the town I was in, there's nothing like that. There's no Ghanaian restaurant, nothing. There wasn't even an African restaurant at the time. But when I was leaving the school, then someone actually started one, like a student. He started one there. So if you want to eat any of those meals, you have to cook everything yourself. So then, yeah, that's also one thing to that. I started missing a lot. And then just like your friendships, the events that they have in the town were like mostly catered for obviously people from that place, like the music, the social concerts that they have. I didn't really enjoy them because again, I was in a town that was like very distant from a very big city. Let's say the closest city, like that was Houston, to where I was like 10-hour drive. I didn't even have a car at the time. There was no way I could make it, even if there was like a concert going on. So it was a very different experience. And so at some point you begin to feel very lonely. But then what helped was the fact that my friends came around. So most of the time we're doing like our own like house parties or everything. And then we started meeting like more Ghanaians started coming into the school, started meeting people from other like maybe Nigerians or Cameroonian. I made a lot of Cameroonian friends, Nigerian friends. So that helped a lot. That's also another con that I would say. And what else? Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like just the opportunities that you may miss out on as a result of not being from the place. Like scholarships, for example. Sometimes you just get a scholarship by being from the town or from that particular state. If you're not from there, you miss out on that. They will only give scholarships to those like particular group of people. If you're international, like if you're an international student, most of the time your school fees are going to be like twice that of the local residents. But if you have a scholarship, like an international scholarship, if you qualify for that, and of course the bar for that is a bit higher. If you qualify for that, then you enjoy like a lot more benefits. But the bar is quite high. Like you have to do a whole lot of research and a whole lot of recommendations. But then if you're just from the town, like just as a result of being from that place, you don't even have to do anything. You just qualify for like literally the same thing that someone else is jumping like so many hoops for. So that's the biggest con that I would say that I experienced, followed by like the being homesick. But then that was a little bit alleviated. And even now where I live, it's at least a little bit like closer to major hubs like Miami or Orlando. So I don't feel it as much. But if you should move to the US and you're in like for example, I met a Ghanaian here who said he lived in North Dakota when he came and he hated, like, he doesn't want to hear the name North Dakota because he had like a really bad experience, like just living there. So he was really happy just moving from that place to Florida now because a much better experience for him. So that's one thing too, like where you move to the US, so if you come to the US, it's going to like affect your life in a whole lot of ways.
That's interesting. Some of these I can relate to, so I'll probably just harp on them from my perspective, right? But for me, I would group the cons in a few categories. One, the social aspect. Two, the work-life balance. Three, the financial aspect. Yeah, surprising. There's opportunity to make money, but there are problems with finances too, and then there's also the big elephant in the room. There's a racism part or discrimination part of things, right? On the social aspect, yeah, Edwin just mentioned a whole bunch of them. But for me, especially like where I am right now, currently in school, upstate New York, it's very far away from New York City. If ever I say New York, please, I'm not talking about New York City. Upstate New York, it is far, it is cold, it's very different from what you see in the movies. Okay, it's and in these kind of places, they are lacking a lot in social, especially for someone with my background. I first example I give is back in Ghana, everybody is your friend until somebody messes it up. But in in the US, what I've come to realize, at least a disclaimer, where I am is a bit different from the rest of the US. And the US is a huge place. It's a huge place. Even one state, Edwin just said it took him 10 hours to go from one place to another. It's a huge place and there are different cultures. So I'm not saying it's all the same, right? But in my place, for example, it's when I was trying to be friendly and extroverted, people were on guard. Like, why are you trying to be so friendly? Then an undergrad Ghanaian explained something to me. He said, bro, they have serial killers here. If someone is being nice to you for no reason, like they will be on guard, and I get it. Context is king. So I get it, So, yeah, the structure of their society, they don't have a lot of social connections. Uh, People are all about their nuclear family, and even when they are done, like when they grow out and they move out of home, that's the emphasis on nuclear family even is reduced. So they will even understand this concept of you're sending money back home. Why can't your own people like take care of themselves? Or even if you're in the US, like you care so much about your external family members, like they won't appreciate it. So also brings up the issue of values. Different concept of values. People, I was having a conversation with someone some weeks ago. The person's like, yeah, like if we are not friends, like I can treat you however I want. I'm like, yo, mutual respect for another human being. Like, you don't get it. So different cultures have different perceptions about what values are. So if you come with a different set of values or an African set of values, it will be very different. Like people, the OGs who were in the UK back in the day, an aunt told me like she fell in a ditch and she was in a ditch for hours. People were passing by, nobody cared. Bro, I kid you not, this week I was walking down the street going to class. I was late for class, and a car was pulling up to the side of the road and it was smoking. It was smoking like maybe he blew a gasket or something, and the person got out of the car and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna mind my own business and just keep walking. If I were in Ghana, oh Charlie, remember bro, everybody will come and support, everybody will come and help you out. But in the US, Charlie, it's not for AAA. Call AAA or call the police to come and help you because everybody's minding their own business. You get me? So these are some of the cons. If you are in trouble, it's difficult because everybody is on guard. Like, what's going on here? Why should they help you? Also, if you're going to be in the US and you're going to try to date values, man, I kid you not. People have different sets of values. It's a struggle, but that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, and it can be very lonely out here. Like, Edwin was saying, if you don't have your people around you, like, at least with the Nigerians, you can talk about some Burna Boy. The Kenyans, East Africans, they also understand the same kind of music. Like, that's the thing that brings us together. Apparently, everybody in Africa knows about Jollof, almost everybody. So we can banter about it and then find more common ground. But, Charlie, I was sitting somewhere, we were having a conversation in a work group, and somebody's talking about fishing. Yeah, what do I know about fishing? All I know about fishing is if I need fish, and I want to go as close to the source as possible, fine, I can go to the seaside and go and talk to some fishmonger or something. But no, they'll get on a boat and do fishing. And like the golf and those kind of things, like you have different background, different experiences. If you move to the US at an earlier age, maybe you come for college or high school, or you're born there, at least you've done some of these experiences and you can relate. So all in all, the social adjustment is immense. And prepare yourself. Me, I thought I was coming in here. Hard guy, oh, I can adjust. I've traveled before. What is this? Charlie. It will knock you like, you won't even see it coming. By the time you realize you're just in some state of depression. You get me? Last year by this time, I kid you not, I've been in the US for close to just under 2 months. It was a tough time for me, and I even got COVID and all that. And I was like, yo, what got me out of that deep point was a Nigerian lady organized a party for the Black African people, and we went there and we just had a good time, and that brought me out of it. Like winter time when you don't see the sun for so long, hey, it's called seasonal depression.
Yeah.
You won't realize it's happening to you, but other people will notice it, or you just become all on your own. Me at home, Friday night I don't sleep. Friday night is when I do laundry, bro. You get me? So, because there's no entertainment, there's no bar that I go and sit at that they are playing my kind of music. But granted, if you go to some other cities, like I was in Dallas for a while, yeah, there's that. So, these social adjustments. Moving away from social adjustments, there's also the stressful work, bro. even if you are working for 8 hours, these people work with a certain level of intensity. Then again, my firm that I work with, fine, it's maybe we take things a bit extra, but other people will still tell you, like anyone doing similar job in Ghana, moving to the US, do similar job, it's way more intense, way more intense. Like the attention to detail, the kind of demands that you are required. If in Ghana, in the same 8 hours, you were required to produce 8 things. In the US, you'll be required to produce like 20 or more things. Like, so you are hyper focused. You have to deliver. Like, no, somebody's not paying you to just come and sit around. No, 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 no. They are not. So they demand so much from you, and they will take their pound of flesh. That's when it brings up this issue about work-life balance, because, and if you work in some industries that you don't get off the clock and they can still reach you at all times of the night and all that, bro, I've come to realize that in Ghana, we don't have a problem with work-life balance. Every weekend you can afford to go for a funeral, so there's that, there's that, difference too. The work-life balance, you have to take it seriously. Otherwise you become a zombie or you become a different kind of person. And then on the money side, you can easily get into trouble with money. There's credits. Like, once you start building a credit history, you start earning an income. Your phone, you can choose not to buy your phone outright. You know how in Ghana, if somebody has an iPhone, you're like, damn, you went to take all this money. I'm seeing prices of iPhones like 13,000, 15,000 for normal one. Hey, Charlie. But here, you can pay for it monthly. Something small a month, $30 a month, $40 a month, So people take a lot of things on credit. The auto loans, consumer loans, they take a bunch of credit cards and then they get into trouble with the credits. And it's like, you get to a point where it's unsustainable and all you are working for is to pay those bills. But you compare that with Ghana. In Ghana, if somebody has something, chances are it's more likely that the person actually paid for the thing outright. You can own these things and have a peace of mind. Granted, you say that in Ghana, because of that, we don't have that quality of life because we don't get to enjoy the fine things of life. Yes. But in the US, people are enjoying the fine things of life and you see it on social media, but they don't own anything and they are so much in debt and the interest rates are so high and it keeps getting them and over again. It becomes a cycle where if you get to that point, it's difficult to dig yourself out of it, but people easily slip into that. And so you sum up these 3 groups of things that I talked about, and it brings up issue of mental health. In Ghana, what is mental health to us? Granted, there's mental health, but most of the time you can just go and laugh it off somewhere, or somebody will come and bring you some nice gossip or something, and you'll be okay. You get me? But here you are isolated. You don't have. There are so many things pressuring you. You have a mortgage to pay. Like, it's really tough. It's really tough out here. So easily affects your mental health. Small things I'll just mention quickly because I know I've been talking for too long. Life here can be expensive. Like, your bills can just rack up so high. Like New York City. Hey, anytime you enter New York City, when you breathe one, that's $50. You breathe two, another $50. Like, so you have to live by plan in those kind of places. Some cities are really expensive. Some are not as expensive. Childcare, if you have children or you plan to have children, childcare is very expensive. So you need to plan appropriately for these kind of things. It's a con. Even for white people, it's a problem for them. Then again, there's also issues of, like, it's pretty dangerous to be in some of these developed countries. Like, you go to certain places, they have access to guns easily. Mass shootings, normal. They don't happen every day, but road rage. Like, I know people who've just been, because maybe they cut off somebody, the person just got mad and then drove them off the road. I've not heard of such a thing happening in Ghana. But road rage here, it's crazy. And I guess you could link it all to mental health issues and people are just stressed and all that. But it can be quite difficult out here. So yeah, I put a premium on paying a bit more in rent to be able to live somewhere that I feel like it's safe. So yeah. And finally, there's discrimination. You are black, you have to prove yourself. It's just facts. People just think you're not competent because you are black. People think you're diversity high because you are black. People think you know nothing because you are black. But that's a story for another day. So just be aware of it. Yeah. So those are some of the cons involved that I have observed about life outside of Ghana, or in my case in the US. So I hope this is serving as some advice for some people who are thinking about making the decision, or if you're already there and you just landed, at least be aware of these things and you can manage yourself appropriately. Yeah, let's move on to perhaps the last but one part of our conversation today. We are taking a bit more time. Edwin, let's talk about the risks involved. I think some of the risks can be picked up from the cons, but any cons that we've not mentioned that, or any risks that we've not mentioned that kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about some points that you mentioned, like about the cons as risks. So I guess I'll just share my own experience too. Um, so like for example, with regards to risk, I would say there's the way that the US like housing system is structured with regards to like finding a place to live. Like if you're trying to rent an apartment or something, it's very first of all it's quite pricey. Like it can get to like I'll say on average it's about $1,800 for like a 1 bedroom. There are some places that will be much cheaper, like depending on where you live. Because
Edwin, I can hear
okay,
you.
yeah,
Keep going.
yeah. There are some places that are much cheaper. Like I think states in the Midwest are a little bit relatively cheaper than places on the eastern side, like the New York areas, or on the western side, like Washington and California. So California and Washington areas, you can expect rents to be like close to $2,000 or $3,000. But then the thing is, you have to be very careful of where you are choosing to live, because if like you are living in a place like California, you know rent is around 2 or 3 thousand, you're finding something around $1,000, you should be a little bit worried because it's cheap for a reason. Like you said, there's a lot of safety concerns. So when I was moving here, I visited the place first before like I just like moved completely, right? And then I had the chance to like connect with some people at work because I was working remote for a while. And then I was asking them like areas that I could live in, and they told me. And most of the time, like I heard from 2 different people, they said the same thing, like avoid this part of Florida, avoid this neighborhood, avoid this neighborhood. Then when I didn't really understand like why they were saying that, so I came here, and I found out that it was noted for having a very high crime rate. So most of the time when I'm going to work or something, I kind of live like closer to that place. I think it's called like Lake Park or something. Almost every time I pass there, you see like at least a cop stopping someone for, I don't know, whatever reason it is. And it has like a very high crime rate. Even in my apartment that I live in right now, I think some 6 or 7 months ago, someone was shot and killed in his room. I still don't know the reason. Apparently they had like an issue with his neighbor or something, and the person was shot on a Sunday. I came back from church and I saw so many cops because I've never seen in my life in the apartment. So if it's cheap, it's cheap for a reason. So you have to be very careful of where you're picking, like to live. Then I would say also, like I said, because of the way things are a bit expensive here, even if they are paying you a lot, the system is still taking a lot. Like your taxes will be way higher. Like you can make a lot of money, but then taxes can take like as much as 40%, depending on like your income level, obviously. So you have to like really be careful of how you're putting away money for things. And then due to that, sometimes it can affect the way that you are planning on making some investments back home. So people who are obviously from the US, like you're born and bred here, I'm talking of like white people who are from here, they only have to build like their houses here or buy houses here. But if you are Ghanaian or from any other country, most of the time you have plans of doing some investments outside of Ghana. Like you want to build a house, you want to build a business, you want to do this, you want to do that. If you are not careful and you're like getting into the habits of the way the US is structured, you may end up spending all your money here and forgetting about all the things that you planned on doing back home. Because like I said, it's structured in a way that it takes a lot from you. So you have to like really structure all your finances really well. Like you have to be very careful of how you're spending money. If not, you just end up you think you're making a lot of money, but when you actually look at it, you're spending so much money on like so many things that you probably shouldn't be doing, and having very little for investments back home. You may be investing in the US, but your investments back home may be declining. Like the plans that you have, you may not be able to accomplish it. That's also another thing I would say. And I would also suggest that if you plan on moving outside like of Ghana to another country, just try to use like a path to like, obtaining like some form of work permit or residency, because it will make your life so much more easier than just finding like a next available flight to come and visit and then just like trying to hustle it out. I would definitely not try that route at all, because you think it may be easy, but the way it's set up can make it even more difficult for you if you're not using like a very direct path. Because the way that their whole work permit system is, if you don't have the necessary documents to work, you won't be able to even find those jobs in the first place. It's going to be like a whole hustle. So that's one thing also that I would advise against. Just try to use like, you can actually just use through school, you can get like a actual work permit and then you can start working for a lot of really good companies. Or you can also like use some programs that they have. I think they have like some companies have like a lot of internship programs that actually take people from outside of the country. That's also one way as well. That's just my advice for that.
Well said, Edwin. Well said. I like some of these points that you've brought up. But the risks I had in mind are pretty much similar. For me, it's really all about your status in whichever country you're going to be at. Making sure that you're on the right visa, you have the right work permits, because even at the opportunities I have, and maybe gave me a nice piece of advice that this conversation, I'm not a good example for this kind of thing. The kind of opportunities that I have is not what the average person will get. So, but I would say, even at my space, we have only like 10% of vacancies are available to internationals. So you'd still come to an international. You still come as an international to a top school and you could still struggle to get a job, so it's still risky. Nothing is guaranteed. You would be paying a lot of money in tuition, a lot of money in for housing and cost of living and all that, but nothing is guaranteed. Yes, there's opportunity, but it could go haywire. I see some people coming and they don't have a full plan. Like, okay, think about what kind of job do you want? It should guide what school you would apply to. And you should make sure that whatever cost of your attendance can be covered by the kind of job that you want. Not that you go and take a job that sounds really good, but they don't really pay well. Then you're screwed. So you just need to make sure that everything you plan properly. Some people got opportunities, but they realize as they started executing, they realized that, I didn't even know how much the school was going to cost. I didn't know if I really get an opportunity to work in school. All right. So there's that. Job security, because your work permits or your visas may be tied to your having a job. You need to make sure that you have a job that is stable. Because if you get laid off or you get fired or something, you can't stay in the company. You can't stay in the country. Some may give you some 30 days or 90 days to leave. Some may not. Some may just ask you, well, catch a flight real quick. So that's a problem. And maybe you've gotten a mortgage, you have huge student loans that you are settling. That's a risk. That's really a risk. There's also, there are some people who end up getting extorted because of this risk of your status. We talk about Ghana being hard. For me, let me digress a little to make this point clearer. I have seen Ghanaians abroad cheating other Ghanaians, extorting them because of these kind of opportunities. Somebody is using somebody's papers. I'm not encouraging you to do illegal things. Just don't do it in the first place. If you're going to do it, then why can't you just have a fair business dealing with a person? You get me? So we complain about our leaders, but it's like the average person will take a chance when they get to cheat the next person. Like, it's just crazy. Somebody lost his job because of his work status. He couldn't get the H-1B lottery, and now the person got married to someone to stay. Like, look, it could be a beautiful union and all, but you may think you found the love of your life, but the person, knowing what they have over you, would think about extorting you. So Charlie, the boys, in fact, boys and girls, everybody trying to go that route, you need to be very careful about the kind of person you go and fall in love with, or you try to do such an arrangement with, because Charlie, if you just easily get extorted. And again, I've seen Ghanaians do this to fellow Ghanaians, and it's just sad. And it just explains why our state is, our country is in the state it is in. It's not just our leaders, it's the average person. You even take them out of that place and they'll still behave that same way, So yeah, just make sure you don't put yourself in a position that you can easily get kicked out. Behave properly. It's not like back in Ghana that you can jump red lights or you can misbehave and you just tip the policeman. No. Yeah. They say there's some corruption in developed countries, but you have to be extremely wealthy and well connected for your corruption to work there. Yeah. They don't care. They don't care, especially you being a black person. So yeah, Charlie, once you come here, you behave appropriately, you behave properly. You get me? So even if it's $1 that you think, oh, you have to pay, Charlie, pay the $1, so you see. When they knock on your door, you understand. Anyway, so yeah, that for me, that's really a wrap of the risks. I hope we've been able to inform anyone who is thinking about this or who just landed in a foreign country, because I know this season, it's when schools start or people are doing a lot of migration around this time. If you are there, it's helped you think about how to plan your life. If you are thinking about making a decision, you've got some information to determine, is it worth it? Is it worth all that risk? Is it worth all that effort to move around? I know Ghana had and all that, but you have to make your decision for yourself and make sure you execute it properly. I see that we have some people who want to contribute to the discussion. Lawrence, I see that your request keeps coming and going. It's difficult to bring you up that way because it's not stable. Way GH also wants to say something. I'll just encourage anyone who wants to share thoughts. Just please keep it short and simple and positive. Okay, let's keep it positive. Let's keep it apolitical, because I know this topic, it can get very dicey. So I just encourage you to keep it nice and crisp so that the conversation can move on, and we'll start wrapping up shortly. Edwin, as we take these other comments, just think about the last advice. Any final words that you would give to anyone who is thinking about making this decision? Is there something that you wish you would have known before? So that's something for you to think about. At this point, I'll bring up Yakubu to share his thoughts, and then we can go back to Edwin. All right, Yakubu.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hey, thank you for allowing me to speak and share my 2 cents. First of all, thank you guys for this, sharing your experiences. I can literally identify with each and every one of the experiences that you've shared, and I was just giggling and laughing because of some of the experiences. Just to keep it short, I just wanted to talk about some risks that people do not realize. I experienced it the hard way, so maybe me sharing it might help somebody. First of all, if you're coming for school, bring your transcripts. Bring it. Any document associated to your school, bring it, because education can change your life. If you can go back to school, go back to school. Do some course, 3 months, 6 months, do it. That's the first one. Bring your transcripts. Get somebody in Ghana who can be your legs to go back to school to take some documents or what have you. So that's the first one. Second one, make sure that your health insurance kicks in as soon as you come. People take that for granted. Your health insurance is very, very important. You might not know how important it is until you get sick in these countries and you don't have an insurance. You pay an arm and a leg. And I'm literally not joking. 2 weeks into my stay in Canada, I got malaria because in Ghana, I was going to my site, and not knowing, a lot of us in Ghana have the malaria parasite in us. We don't know. Some of us are +1, +2. But we are just walking around. But the moment the weather changes, it triggers the body system, and before you realize, the symptoms are out. And if you don't have your insurance, you are screwed. I had to pay $1,000 just for them to look at me, just for them to let me enter into the hospital because I didn't have an insurance. And it wasn't as if I came illegally. I had a legal status, but just that my insurance would take, I think, another month for it to kick in or another 2 weeks for it to kick in. And I was 2 weeks exactly in the country. So please, that's also another risk. Make sure either you get your insurance from Ghana And unfortunately, that's the shitty part. A lot of our insurances in Ghana are shit. Excuse my French, but it's better than nothing. At least it will cover something. But if you're coming through school, usually school will cover the insurance. If you're coming through PR, make sure you have it. If you don't have it, to get some Lonart or some malaria drugs in your bag. If you're a sickler or something, you have some condition, buy those medicines and put it in your bag and bring it. Some angel herbal mixture, something mixture, get it. Any certified drug that you have, get it. Because once you get sick and insurance that's not fixing, you are screwed. Apart from that, everything else you guys have said is true. If you're coming as a tourist and you want to overstay, please, I advise you don't, because the risks are very high. I had to help somebody recently because he did not know Jack.
Thank you, Yakubu. That was a very good angle. Health. That's a very important thing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And if anybody is out here and you need an immigration lawyer, actually, I know one, an old mate from high school, Kwesi Bediakon. Just get in touch and I would get in touch with him to help you. Not encouraging you to go and misbehave, but if it has happened already or if it happens, please get the right help you need. All right. Okay. Lawrence, how about you? You wanted to share some thoughts?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to share just a story that I experienced when I was in Canada. So I've gone there to do my master's. All right. I think that's the reason why it's good to go there legally or have your legal documents around. So I was there, I was doing my master's, and we decided to visit the Niagara Falls. And on our way, we missed our turn. All right. So we ended up on the road that was going towards the US. And then, so when that happened, we had to do a U-turn between the US and then the Canadian border. So it's like we had to go through the Canadian immigration all over again. So as we got there, they asked us for our identification. All right, I was with my landlord who was a Canadian. So he showed his driver's license and everything. It was fine. So I was going through my wallet and then I realized that I had left my school ID card at home because I didn't think I would need it. And so I had on me just my bus pass. So I was really worried because I didn't know what they were going to do. So they were like, okay, they will just still take my bus pass. So they just took the bus pass, checked my name on the system, and they were like, okay, well, I'm here legally. I'm doing my master's in this school. I live in this place. Like they were able to, they just got all my information right there on the screen. And then there, I just realized that, okay, so assuming I had come on a tourist visa and I had overstayed, it means that right there, I was going to be arrested and then deported. All right. So these things, people who tend to come in with these types of visas where they overstay, they are, especially in Canada. Canada, it's easy for the immigration to follow up and then deport you. I've seen that happen to a number of people whilst I was there. So it's something that I think when coming there, I always think that education is the best option when coming to Canada, US, or any of these countries. Because once you use education, at least the system receives you readily. You also are able to assimilate. You get about a year or two, depending on what program you are doing. So by the time you are done, at least you also have their education or their certificate, which it becomes easy to also find jobs to do. All right. So that's just something I wanted to share in terms of my experience being in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for sharing that. As you were saying the story, hey, the horror that hit me. I was like, hey, this guy got busy. I could see Daniel also was reacting because go anywhere outside without your ID. Man. Yeah. No. It's not fun. It's not fun. Yeah. Some of the things that we used to take for granted back at home, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
All right. Thank you, Yakubu and Lauren, for sharing.
Just to add to what he just said. Add to what he just said. It's always good to go to get a certified copies of your IDs. If you cannot carry your IDs around, scan a copy. Let it be on your phone. Student ID or the letters you brought. If you're a student, the letters you brought in school with, you came to the country with, all your IDs. Get a scanned copy. Get a certified copy. If you want a certified copy in Canada, I think you can go to the MLA's office or an MP's office. They'll give you a certified copy. then you always have it just in case something happens, you get missing, you go hiking, swimming or anything, something gets lost, you have it. So it's good to have those kind of copies around. I just wanted to add that.
All right, thanks.
That's very
I mean, that was a
helpful.
long time ago, so now I'm a PR, so I'm fine.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Great.
Wow, you crossed a big mark.
Okay, great. Thank you both for sharing your experiences. So yeah, we start wrapping up. Edwin, back to you. Any last tips you have for people?
Yeah. Okay. So my final tips, I would say that, so if you're, again, I'm usually using like school as an example because that's what I came to, and that's what I've seen works very well. So if you're planning on going to school, like especially in the US, one thing that I realized, well, I didn't know at first, but one thing I realized is that the school that you go to will determine like the kind of opportunities that you will get, because a lot of companies like to hire from target schools. So if you're not in their target school, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult for them to take you, like for them to hire you. Because I've heard from like, and I've experienced it myself, like if you there are companies that, especially with I think the MBAs too, and consulting companies as well, they like to hire from like particular schools that they always hire from. So when even like the company I work in right now is in Florida, and most of the people here are from University of Florida. And then there's another, like there are two schools that they're always hiring from, because every time they have like a lot of career events or career sessions, they're always going to those schools. And so the chances of them hiring from someone from there to the company is going to be higher than from another school in another state. And back when I was in Texas Tech as well, that's where I went to school for my master's program. There were always like some particular oil and gas companies coming there and always hiring from there. But then they didn't really have like a very high number. And then I later heard from a friend of mine or a couple of friends who got into those companies that when they started working there, they realized that most of the alumni or most of the people in those companies were from a particular school. Like all the heads in those companies are from a particular school. So they have a bias towards hiring from this that particular school, which was Texas A&M, I think, or UT Austin. So when you go to those companies, they're always going to hire, statistically speaking, they always hire from like UT Austin or Texas A&M. So if you're in Texas Tech and they are doing like maybe an interview, the whole panel is people from UT Austin or Texas A&M. Even if you are equally as good as the person from UT Austin or A&M, they are most likely going to hire the other person over you. So that's one thing you should keep in mind. The second thing I would say is that there are some programs that they call them like STEM programs, like science, technology, engineering, and maths. They give a better chance of you getting a work visa because they have like a 3-year work permit, as opposed to non-STEM programs that are just 1-year work permit. So that what that means is if you have a 3-year work permit, you have like essentially at least 3 chances of getting like a H-1B visa, because sometimes in a year they can do a lottery more than once. I think this year they've already done it twice. So if you're in a STEM program, at least you have 3 chances. If you're in a non-STEM program, you have just 1 probably, or even if they do it twice that year, then you have just 2, compared to someone who would have 3-year work permits and will have maybe 6 if they do it twice every year. So that's also another thing to keep in mind. But then I recently also discovered that there are some programs that they call them STEM, but they are not actually STEM. Like they're not recognized as STEM by the Homeland Department. They just call it STEM. I don't know the reason why. I think it's like they designate it as STEM by the school, but Homeland doesn't recognize it as such. So you may think you're in a STEM program and you'll be getting a 3-year permit, but then when you start the program, then you realize that it's actually not 3 years, it's a 1-year work permit. And I've had like 3 friends that has happened to them. Actually, one of them just came to the US like last month because he thought he got a school with it's an MPH program. He said it's STEM, but when he got to the US, he realized it's called STEM, but it's not a 3-year work permit. So he has just like a year work permit from that. So that's one thing to be like wary of. You must make sure like you just verify that. And I'd always advocate for STEM programs because of what I had said earlier. And the last thing is when you're in school, again, don't just focus on like the academics. Like that's one aspect, but you should really try as much as possible to know the culture of the states that you're in, because different states have different cultures. Like I think Elikim had said something earlier where like in where he is, people are very rude. So if you're in, and I've experienced something like that before in Chicago, like I think people there are more rude compared to Texas and Florida. Like people are much more friendly. So you have to, based on where you are, you have to like study the people there and know how to act accordingly. However, when it comes to like when you're in a school environment, it's a little bit different, and most of the time you'll be more focused on your academics. But I would say try as much as possible to be engaged in a lot of like social events, like going for career fairs and being a little bit like more assertive or bold. Because what I've seen is like, or what I heard from a career coach was that she told me that the way that I was speaking was like a little bit timid. And I've heard this thing a lot too, like from, they say Ghanaians are timid, Ghanaians are timid. So she was like, you have to be very assertive because people, the hiring manager or whatever, they want to see like some kind of confidence. It's all about just confidence. Like even if you don't know the thing, just act like you know, like talk like you know the thing really well. Most of the time, the people that you work with, they don't know everything. Like they are just learning it just like you are. They are not smarter than you. They just also just got the idea. Some of them know, but most of the time we are all just trying to figure it out. You just have to like just speak with even the handshake. Like I was the career friend, and the guy was black. He's Cameroonian, and I gave him a handshake and we spoke and everything. And then after everything, he told me like, hey, I like what you said. You sound very smart, but one thing that I'll say is just have a firmer handshake, because a firmer handshake shows that like it just gives like some sort of confidence. Like it shows, even if the person doesn't know you, just by the way the person gives you that handshake, it's very firm. Like it feels like they're trying to crush your finger, but it shows some kind of confidence. So he told me just always make sure you have a very firm handshake, and then just speak like the way you talk is very good, but just increase your voice and just take it show and you'll be fine. And I tried that ever since, and every single time like I do an interview, I always go to like much higher stages than I used to get to. So that was one advice also that I would say, just even if you don't know it, sound like you know it, just show confidence, just fake it. If you can, just fake it, then you'll be fine. That's a final piece of advice that I'll give to you.
Man's like fake it till you make it, eh? Yeah, I think Edwin's final words are very apt. I wouldn't add any more to that. It's important that you follow these things. And in fact, maybe fine. My last advice, two pieces of advice: play back this conversation if you want to. If it is a decision that's ahead of you and you're trying to make that decision, play it back. Reach out to the people who spoke about their experiences. Talk to people who've been there. Talk to multiple people, because my experience is different from Edwin's experience, is different from different people's experiences. In fact, two people can be in the same place, same company, or same school, and they'll have different experiences. Talk to as many people as you can to get a better sense. But by all means, be well informed before you make a decision, before you start taking action, before you start committing time and effort and money into any decision, any endeavor that you're going to do. Okay, so thank you all for making this time on this nice Sunday night to listen to us. We've gone way longer than we usually do, but it's a very important thing. And in fact, we know we've not fully exhausted it. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about the how. Some of the how to go about it if you've made a decision came up in the conversation. But what we intend to do is, over the next couple of months, we'll have a conversation every now and then with people who've been to different places. So we could take a country like Canada and bring people who've been to Canada and have this conversation with them. People who went to abroad for work for a particular industry, maybe nursing or education or something, so that you could, if hopefully these parts could be relevant to some people to inform their decision about how to go about it. So stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, just go search for Money Convos so that I can play back these conversations. And when you're on Instagram, follow at investment_friend. That's investment friend. You see Mimi and Sarah put out a lot of content that brings it closer to home, closer to you. It's not just generic information about personal finance and investments that we give, but you would be engaging with them on and answering questions that relate to you so that they can give you information that is really relevant to you and not the next person. So do follow, and don't just follow, share with other people. Because remember, you may be financially independent, but if people around you aren't, they'll keep coming to you to ask you for money. Even if you don't give them, that's a whole lot of stress you just have to deal with. But imagine if 5 years to come, all the people around you are financially independent and you have no stresses in life, or you have fewer stresses in life. That would be really great, right? So follow and share with other people so that we'll all be great. Thank you all for listening to us. Thank you, Edwin, for sharing your experience. Thank you, Lawrence and Yakubu, also for chipping in. Thank you, Mimi, for sharing your thoughts and representing the average Ghanaian who may be thinking about this. And hope we all have a productive weekend as we think through these things. At least we are better informed. So yeah, catch you same time next week, 8 p.m. GMT next week, Sunday. Have a good night. Have a great week. Goodbye.
All right. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our thoughts. I hope you learned a thing or two and start practicing. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Do tell a friend about Money Convos so we all become wealthy together. Talk to you soon. Bye.